I'm not a huge Toby Keith fan, but there's a few of his songs that I really love, and one of them is "Not as Good as I Once Was." That really speaks to that feeling that you've lost a step, but you're hanging in there, fighting on. I didn't realize that Toby and Clint Eastwood were buddies. Um, I'm sure, like anybody else, Toby Keith was in awe of Eastwood, and when they met, uh, Toby Keith asked him, what his secret was, and Clint said, "What do you mean?" And Toby said, "Well, you're 92, still doing Oscar level work. What has been? How have you managed to do it? How have you managed to age so well, to keep fighting?" And Eastwood said, "Just get up and go outside. Don't let the old man in." I love that idea. I love that line, that aging is inevitable and you should accept it with some grace, but you can resist the concessions of aging. And I guess that realization was where my journey started. In retrospect, it was COVID. I had a really hard time. I had always been someone that drew a lot of energy from the city, from going out to restaurants and eating good food with good people, great conversation, that kind of thing was super important to me. And when that was taken away, I was really, I was depressed and sad, like everybody was. One day I decided to just kind of go for a walk, and I took my dog and I ended up in the woods near our house. And I walked around outside, and it was a sunny day, and nature was, unaffected by the chaos in the human world, and it just made me feel better. I came back to the house and just felt better. The next day I did it again. I went a little further from the house. I went to a trail, one of many trails near our place that I had never even known existed before COVID. Sort of amazing that we didn't take advantage of those things before there was a chance to do it. And I loved it. And day by day I stayed out a little bit longer. Eventually, like everybody else, we had a shelter outside. It was starting to get cold, and we got a fire pit and started to do that outside, and loved it. And I would cook in the house. We would maybe have another couple over, kind of hang out in the yard, being outside, and it was wonderful. There's this Swedish word, friluftsliv. It means free air life, and it's really a commitment on the part of the Swedes to enjoy the outdoors regardless of the weather. And that idea, really took hold, and started to cook more outside, started to experiment with that. And it wasn't long of doing that where eventually you say, well, maybe you could stay out all night. And there's a word for that, and that word is camping. Eventually, I saw a review of this Durston tent, and the thing was awesome. And it wasn't even that expensive, but it was everybody was talking about this tent. It was the must-have tent for the backpacking community. So I got this tent, and I set it up in my backyard, and I got in it, and I felt like terrible, like incredibly claustrophobic, um, and I couldn't believe that if this is really the best, then maybe this isn't for me. So I lost momentum for a while until I found like a whole different community of people, a whole different set of channels around something called overlanding. Now, overlanding is um, it's like hiking but with a truck. And the beauty of that is you can carry heavier stuff because you're not limited to just the ultralight stuff. And so you can have a little bit more comfort. And I thought, well, gee, that sounds pretty good. Um, Problem was I didn't have a truck. So um, I went and get a truck. Started to accumulate some overlanding stuff. Nothing crazy, but certainly could had space for a larger tent, and I wanted something that was easy to set up, having gone through my experience with the Durston. And I found this Gazelle T3X. Searched around online, huge, great reviews, got a great deal on it. Set that up in my yard, and I felt pretty good in that tent. Um, so now I had a truck, I had a tent, I had some basic gear. I was ready to give it a shot. All I needed was some place to go overland. Now, being in Massachusetts, I noticed that a lot of these overlanding videos took place in, way out west, and not really an ideal location for me. So I started to look around, and I, for the life of me, could not find any place to really do overlanding. So I said, well, what if I just kind of found a place to go out in the woods, like go out in the forest? And I was looking around for videos for this, and I found a whole different group of people. And these people call themselves bushcrafters. Bushcrafter. That sounds cool. I found a Swedish guy named Swedwoods. I found Coalcracker Bushcraft, Dan Wowak. He was awesome. Liked everything about him. Started to accumulate Filson gear when I could get it on sale. And these guys just went out in the woods and did their thing. So kind of like, I guess you could use the truck to kind of get to the woods. You just have to find, you could schlep your stuff. Maybe the T3X wouldn't work, but some hybrid. All I really needed was a place to go and give this a shot. It took me forever to figure out that, there's like 1,000 state parks and places to go, all within, an hour or two of where I live in Massachusetts. And so I started to research those. I got an app called The Dirt, and that had a bunch of reviews. I figured out, boy, the tricky part of these places is you really need a good site, and started to look for videos that talked about like which sites were ideal, and just slowly accumulated enough confidence to give one of these things a shot. The place I chose for that first adventure was called Miles Standish State Park. It was down near Cape Cod. And I went there with a buddy. It took me a long time to find someone my age interested in camping. A lot of people said they were interested. It's funny, but then I was like, hey, how about Saturday? They're like, oh, shit, I got whatever. So, but anyway, found someone, and we went out there, and I threw everything in my truck, set up my gazelle. I laid down my pad, I got in my sleeping bag, and I had a fantastic time. I think we made jambalaya that first night, and I was hooked. From there, I tried some stuff. I tried a bunch of gear. Didn't work. I was so cold one night. I didn't sleep. That sucked. Um, and just through trial and error, minor league suffering and a willingness to learn, um, I made my way through it. The the Japanese have this word that I always loved. It's shoshin. Shoshin. It means beginner's mind. And the idea is that if you are an expert in something, then you're you have confidence in your ability, and that makes you closed to new information. Where if you can behave as a beginner, if you can have beginner's mind, that is a place of humility and openness. It is a place of where you're willing to screw up. And for competent people, that is hard, but I think it's the only place that you really grow. And so, the process of starting anything, particularly starting anything kind of later in life, involves a lot of shoshin, and that's okay. I think you got to kind of lean into that and take some joy in the fact that you're learning. You're learning. When you combine the desire to be comfortable with the desire to camp with somebody, usually somebody who has not camped, and so you have to have the gear for two. I found myself with these more and more elaborate setups. Um, I got this North Face Wawona 6 tent, which is a very cool kind of. It's like a 6-person tent, but you know you always want to get a tent that's a couple more people than you're actually going to put in it. Um, and this thing was awesome. And actually, um, my wife came camping with me, and I had the whole setup. Man, I had like these sweet little nature hike cots. I had these really good air mattresses by that point. The Wawona. I had this like canvas thing sprayed with permethrin to keep the bugs away. The solar powered lantern. We went out for a couple of days and had a nice trip. But man, it's just a boatload of work. And um, I came to realize that you have to take into account, it's not like we're going camping for 6 days. Like I'm usually doing overnights or day trips, you know, or sorry, 1 or 2 nights usually in a park. And it just, the weight of this became overwhelming. Not the physical weight, but just the burden of setting it up and breaking it down began to kind of take away some of the joy that I had found in it. So I was determined to kind of downsize and find ways to try and stay comfortable. Um, um, I had taken to the cots because, for people of a certain age, the getting up and down, particularly because you're going to do that at least once in the night, um, was rough. And so I said, well, maybe I'll try something on the ground, and looked into a bunch of pads. I came across the XPED, this sort of incredibly comfortable XPED pad. Um, and I found a Chinese knockoff of that. And I would say that I more and more found these sort of knockoff brands um, that weren't like, shitty quality. Like I would try them and they would be very good. In fact, there's a handful of brands. Nature Hike is one of them, and One Tigress, and I think One Wind, I'm pretty sure is Chinese, at least Chinese manufactured. And these brands were really good. Um, and so I got a sort of lighter weight setup. I got some smaller tents. I got the MSR Elixir. That's my current tent. I'll show you that in a minute. And even a smaller tent, something called a Light Fighter. This thing is just cool, badass, kind of military tent for soldiers who have to go in and set up quick, and you just kind of figure it out as you go, trying and learning what you need and what flavor of this actually works for you. Um, Tonight I'm camping in the MSR. Um, the aluminum cook set that you just saw earlier is this thing called the Trangia, and I find myself making simpler and simpler meals out here, just to kind of cut down on the mental load, and just trying to enjoy it. Um, this place is called Fort Dummer. It's on the southern end of Vermont. It's not too far from my house, and it's a beautiful little camp, big sites, not a lot of RVs. Um, that's another thing you figure out, is that the RV people, that's a whole different thing with the hookups and the whatevers and the generator noise. Um, and I really, coming back to the reasons that I'm out here to begin with, is really to kind of be in nature and get away and try to just enjoy it. This is that MSR 10 I was talking about. This is called the Elixir. And you'll see a lot of reviews online for something called the MSR Hubba Hubba, which is the backpacking version of this tent. It's much lighter and correspondingly much more expensive. I actually prefer the Elixir because the weight is not a big deal for me. I'm going to be, after all, in a taking it out in the truck anyway. But it's a little bit better when it's cool out because there's not quite as much mesh in it. And it has these large, you can see these kind of vestibules here. I have my whole sleep kit kind of goes in one of those, and then I use the other one as the entrance. It's nice that you can get in and out of kind of both sides of this thing. I have to say, I really have come to appreciate the military surplus stuff. The stuff is all bomb-proof, I guess, no pun intended. And it's a little heavier than regular backpacking stuff, but the beauty of it is that it tends to really work, and the zippers are all good, and that matters a lot. It's just great stuff. It's also cheap. So anyway, the Whoopee is my primary blanket, and then I have a couple of other blankets. One is a one-wind quilt in case it gets really cold, and then I have something called a Snug Pack jungle blanket. So usually I can get away with just the Whoopee. My one step up is I throw the jungle blanket on top of me, and then if I get cold during the night in the troughs of pre-dawn, I can always slide on a quilt. And that's it. A little redundancy, some extra stuff, and you're good to go. I mentioned simplifying my meals. It doesn't get a lot simpler than this. This is just kind of red beans and rice mix, and you can just throw this in a pot and cook it up. It's really pretty painless. If you want, you can throw some kielbasa in it or whatever, but I didn't even bother to do that this time. And this is really good stuff and super simple. Cooling off a bit. This is a Spyglass State Machine Citra. Cheers. Ooh, that's good. Juicy. Really good. All right, so I'm losing the light here, and I'm gonna eat dinner and then start a fire, and I'll bring you back. This is the best part of any trip. Just hanging out by the fire, listening to some Chris Christopherson or whatever, Sturgill Simpson, and just drinking it in. I know this image sucks, so I will come back when it's time for bed. All right, folks, I'm in the tent. Lovely night. Not much to see in here, obviously, so I guess I'll catch you in the morning. Night. Good morning. About 8 o'clock. Rained like hell last night. Tent was great. It's funny how you get kind of an emotional connection to this gear when it does what it's supposed to do. I slept pretty well. This time of year there's like acorns, hitting the ground like all night, and it sounds a lot like someone walking towards you, so had to kind of get used to that. But sound of the rain actually was really a cool sound, and looks like it's about to end, so I'm gonna try and rally. Here's the inside of the tent with the advent of a little light. This top blanket here is that jungle blanket I mentioned last night, the Snug Pack jungle blanket. This thing is amazing. And then this is a Whoopee. This is a kind of high-end version of a marine poncho liner. This one's from Zero Foxtrot. It has a fleece liner. And then I have my pad and my X-Ped inflatable pillow. This setup keeps me in pretty good shape until, I would say, down to about 45 degrees. Last night it was only 50, so really no problem, and works. Well, usually I'd make some coffee, which is a process I have pretty much dialed in and will save for another video. But everything out here is a wet mess, and that's just how it goes sometimes. So I'm gonna try and pack up my soggy crap and hustle my way out of here. Thanks for watching this, my first attempt. I'm sure I did some stupid stuff, but like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, what I should do more of, less of. Trying to figure this out. All right. Thanks, and have a great day.
Went down to the river, washed my sins away, praying for another day. I went down to that river, washed my sins for free. The devil's on the other bank, staring back at me. I'm a dead man walking, I'm a dead man walking, I'm a dead man